Hello, Rex. How are you?
Very well, thank you,
Oh,
Christiana.
well, and I know we're here today for the Orinoco Flows Community, and we have a new project coming, which we're excited to share with our audience. And today you're going to tell us a little bit about what this project entails. And we've entitled it or titled it Harmonics. I can't speak, Rex. Harmonics for Menopause, supporting your experience.
Sure.
And I know that the subject matter menopause, we started the Orinoco Flows community as a community to support women in birth, but also we've taken on this perception or perspective that we are a community of all ages, all sex, people, because we are all part of a mandala, and that we all come through on this earth through the initiation of birth and through a woman, carrying us in their body. And now we're speaking about transition and the power of transition that can occur in our life, whether it is through the transition of birth, the transition of becoming an adult, and then the transition of becoming a sage or a wise person that's, in the latter half of your life.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, Rex, like what got you interested in the topic of menopause, and what is your experience with
Okay.
servicing women around this topic?
Sure, certainly. And of course, I know it's kind of quite surprising for many people. Um, you know, he's never had the experience, so how could he be talking about this? So this is, of course, a comment that can be there. But anyway, over more than 4 decades, most of my students, clients, patients, um, 70 to 80% of them have been women.
Mm.
And in that whole period, um, a lot of them in going through the transition of menopause, they share their experience with me. And to be honest, it's very painful to hear some of it, because they're really doing their best in the sense of, the lifestyle. Of course, there are certain women where their lifestyle is not that great, but the majority of women who sort of have come to see me over the years are in the area of holistic health. So their awareness of being responsible for their health and well-being is a dominant factor as regards their life. And they say, well, it's started or it's premenopause or perimenopause, and I'm losing my hair, my nails are cracking, I'm depressed, I don't want to wake up on mornings. And sometimes in these conversations, they're quote unquote doing something about it. They're either on HRT or they have a strip on their body or whatever. And so it's not working, quote unquote. At least their sense of wellness, their sense of self is being denigrated. The whole self-esteem is being knocked very heavily. And it's so I've observed this is no exaggeration. For some women, it can be a very traumatic experience.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, so over the years, over the decades, I have made suggestions. And in fact, in 2015 here in Finland, in Helsinki, I did a program on menopause for women. And there was quite a large gathering. In fact, women from all over Europe came, and some of students. So yes, there's a lot that, I have to say about this. So yeah.
Well, and I'm just so curious because we're in an era, if you will, in society that it seems to be making transitions in our life can be very traumatic. Like, we're dealing with women around birth, and we're understanding that with the science of prenatal and perinatal psychology, that more than half, and sometimes the count being close to 97% of children experience birth trauma coming through, and that we don't have these layers of support to be attuned to the power of birth and what is happening for the initiation into life itself on this planet. And we're also we know that in this current state of affairs, that we've also forgotten our natural rhythms, our biological rhythms, and we use a lot of technology to support our means of living, but that a lot of times we've forgotten how to connect into this, well, what we call the divine substance, the cosmos or the star, the things that we're made out of, right? Our bodies. And I'm just curious how your view is, what you view about when it goes wrong for women, because I know this traumatic experience for menopause, you've even tracked back through your work that it really starts to occur for a woman when she first gets her period.
Sure. The experience is really one of the cosmos, the celestial forces, whereby the girl is 12, 13, 14, whatever in that sort of time frame, age group. And it happens. It doesn't happen out of a ceremony. It just happens. And quote unquote, out of nowhere. And of course, that aspect, the responsibility of the mother, the granny, the aunt, or if, she's being brought up by her father, as regards informing her, of giving her, in my view, her sovereignty, a sovereignty of her body, that listen, what is going to occur is that you're going to have something called a menstrual cycle, and blood will appear, etc., etc. And this needs to be given to the young girl and being informed about how she deals with that. Because that is then giving her the ownership of her body in the sense of, I have this and I am connected with the divine. I'm connected with nature. I am part of nature. Because that is really the statement. She is part of nature. And being part of nature means that you bring creation into life. You bring, future generations into life. So all of this is part of that conversation. Sadly, over the decades, and this is interesting, Christiana, when I sort of hear the intensity of the emotional discomfort with the menopause or the premenopause experience going on and how kind of really traumatic it is, one of the questions that I ask, and which is then very shocking for me to realize or hear, I ask, so what happened on that first monthly cycle? How was that for you? Oftentimes, in those situations where it is very heavy emotionally, it was a shock. I never knew about it. My mother didn't tell me, or my aunt, or whatever. And I just have felt like kind of abandoned, like anything in life can happen to me and I have no control about my life. And this is part of a trauma which began in a sense of how the initiation of becoming a woman started. And at times, if that is not addressed, the menopause is a heavy situation for the woman to deal with. This I have observed that. And I know not much, as far as I know, there's no dialogue about that really, or no sort of work has been done around assisting women who have had such a sort of trauma about becoming a woman, because it is a trauma that, somehow the girl is at school or whatever, and then blood happens and it's like, you know, what's happening?
Well, there's shame involved, and this is where you mentioned a couple of things that I really want to spend a little time on. Ceremony. And we know, like, so when was it right? Like, well, we know in ancient cultures that there was a ceremony about coming into age or coming of age. And it was very, I mean, it was part of the whole tribe or the community. And that the women would, you know, shower attention upon the young maiden. And then there would be some sort of journey, like a journey inward for the girl. And you can even see now, like documentaries, there would be in different parts of the world, different ways to deal with the ceremony, but the girl would spend time, usually in isolation, or some sort of meditative state that would connect her again to the cosmos, or even this lunar cycle. And then how her body is tied emotionally to the ebb and the waning, right, of the cycles in nature, which was so natural. And just like as she's coming of age, she's starting to experience this rise, you know, this building of creative forces and what that means for her and how she feels in her body, where you're like energetic and you're outgoing and you have this ability to create. And then the waning period, right, where it's a bit of a destructive nature, but a more inward solitude. You're not necessarily in that creative mode, but this is part of the ebb and the flow, if you will. And I just noticed when you said that word ceremony, there is no ceremony around menopause. In fact, it's deemed as a problem in our society. And again, we use that word shame, like a girl, when blood comes, there's this connotation or imprint, if you will, of shame around it, that it must be hidden, and that something is dirty even about the girl, or unclean. So maybe you can talk a little bit about your perception of this element and how we got to this menopause is a problem and that we must fix it attitude.
Sure. You're speaking about what you were just speaking about is really, it's a taboo subject. This is a taboo subject. And in that taboo subject, shame is part of it. Embarrassment is part of it. Have to hide, have to be whatever. Going back to what you mentioned around ceremony, of course, it would vary from culture to culture, but one of the basic aspects of it is that there's the earth, there is food, there is blood that comes from the food, and then blood comes back to the earth. And so the joining of the girl with her, that ceremony of the monthly cycle is that you're bringing the blood back to the earth. This is part of a whole creation. Of course, there are different ways of talking about it, but that is a very simple way about it, i.e., back to the earth. Now, in the menopause situation, where the blood and the whole hormonal system is changing, really, it is about connecting to the cosmos. Because many times, and in fact, this is, in the West, this has gone on whereby then the woman has to take a pill because her husband or a partner tells her, listen, you need to shut up, because she's having these altered state experiences, out of body, spiritual. Because in the older times, and when I say older times, like in Trinidad, I know, I remember my mother had domestic help at times, and some of these women, they were working class, whatever, and then they would go on what was called a mourning, whereby because the menopause is starting to set in, and the whole aspect of fasting and connecting with the divine, with life, that they then became in the community like an elder who will get messages.
Mm,
So the menopause really is really about is a transition into a connection to the divine, whereby it has a spiritual aspect to it. That, I think, even my mentioning that
hmm.
can be taboo for me to even say that, but that is a reality there for many societies, and not that long ago, and in some societies in the world, it still is that way. It is. So some of how we talk about it, I guess I have to package some of it so it's not quote unquote becomes that far out or so out of the box that the woman is really, plugged in. But the psychic aspect can get turned on in a big way, in a very positive direction.
Very positive. And this is where, just taking a pause, about this event that we have coming June, what is it, June 7th, I
7th.
believe. Yes, June 7th. We're going to be hosting a call with you to address actual holistic ways to make this transition or support perimenopause, menopause, any stage that you're in post-menopause, with holistic means. And you're going to give tips and share stories with women that you've helped. We even interviewed one of your first clients, Lena, who you gave this very simple ritual to, that the two of you came up with the ritual based on her own ancestral information and her own life experience. But this really helped, this really supported her in a natural, holistic way. In fact, it shifted her whole life. I love the story, and we'll have it here on the YouTube. But this June 7th event that we're going to hold for the Harmonics for menopause, supporting your experience. We're going to put this information here on the screen and in the YouTube description. And it's also advertised through our Orinoco Flows community on Facebook, so you can get more information. And this is going to evolve into something even bigger, because I know we're working on publishing a little book that supports the star child, or the child star number. I always invert that. So funny.
That's all right. That's all right. Allow yourself to be Christiana. So,
Well, I always it's so funny. I put the star first.
All right.
But yes, we're going to have this, and then eventually we're working on a workshop that women can attend, like you did in Helsinki, but a deeper dive into this information. So we're going to pause here with just the invitation for people to come and join us June 7th. It's a free event. And then we're going to come back and return to this conversation. Sound good?
Thank you very much, Christiana.